James, you came into Bloodline in its second season.
hmm
Uh, Talk about coming into a show after it's already had a season. As a composer, what do you bring to it that's new or fresh, or do you do what was set out before you? Talk about coming into it.
in this case, I had a relationship with the producers and the creators, and for multiple reasons, I wasn't able to do the first season. But so I think that they wanted to have a combination of some familiarity with workflow on a practical level, and aesthetically, I think they wanted me to come in and kind of be maybe a bit darker and maybe a bit more sort of adventurous with things that they were looking for going into the second season. I think they wanted to change the tone a bit and make things a bit more suspenseful and drive things a bit harder. And they just had kind of a different creative vision, and they, had appreciated a bunch of the work we had done on Damages and wanted me to come in and do some stuff.
Right. I was going to say you guys had worked on Damages before. This doing a show like this where it's all released in one day on this streaming platform.
Mm-hmm.
How different is that from what you're used to in your usual workflow?
Well, I think that, every show is, does something differently. And certainly some of the more traditional, like network or cable shows that I've done, some of them have been really procedural, where it's week to week crime. This show, we really focus on, character and the arc of the story over 10 episodes. So you think about, it's almost like a film where you can't, you got to pace yourself, and you got to think about, well, what's going to be happening 10 episodes later, not only in the sense that it's important to hold back and give little pieces so that you have somewhere to go with the music and the story, but also, you want to be mindful of the fact that people binge and people, watch it back to back to back to back. So one of our challenges is to create, music and a show that doesn't feel like you're bored and you've heard everything and you've seen everything by the time you get to the end,
Mm-hmm. So then talk about how you musically created that suspense, that darkness for this show. What were your ideas?
Well, I think the main focus was to create a sense of paranoia and unease with all,
Mhm.
from the standpoint that the characters, as well as the viewers, have these, they can never be safe, and they never feel exactly comfortable, because as soon as they get comfortable, there's a gnawing that's like, oh shoot, I'm hiding this secret. I'm protecting my family. I'm hiding the secret. So everybody's manipulating memories and secrets. And so for creating tension, I didn't want to focus on the literal creating tension, like a car is driving really slow and I'm going to make the music really tense. It was more, everything was coming from the place of like, what's happening behind the eyes of this specific character? What's motivating them? What memory do they have? What is their end game? Like, what is John is constantly trying to manipulate all the pieces in his life to hide a secret and to make people forget the memories they've had, or to suppress memory. So there's a lot of like play on that, and those are the elements I focused on and tried to get inside of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does keep coming back, especially in the. I love all those moments where the. Not to give anything away, but
Yeah.
I guess I'll put a spoiler alert at the end, at the beginning of this.
Yeah.
The way that the ghost of Danny keeps coming back and reminding him of this. What were some of the challenges of it for you musically? Were there any challenges there?
Oh, of course. There's always challenges. I mean, I think some of the challenges, well, first and foremost, not to be too overt, trying to be sort of grown up about everything, for lack of a better word, to not feel like I have to work too hard, again, on the literal scoring, on the scene transitions or the car driving, but to sort of hold back and create this layer of just like paranoia So how do we do that? It's challenging. It's hard, you know, and a lot of that is done with space and actually not scoring things where you feel like it should be scored and scoring the opposite, you know, and playing, you know, playing with those ideas and challenging myself to see a scene from various perspectives, because in this kind of show that's so psychological, it's really important to know what point of view you want to have in the scene, because the music creates this almost, you know, it's not necessary, it's very minimal.
Mm-hmm.
So the challenge is to keep it minimal but keep it effective. You know, you can keep a drone going through everything and then it kind of becomes meaningless. It's just this bed. But how do you use the frequency and the timbre and, you know, the pitch and the placement to sort of aggravate the viewer a bit, you know?
Right. Yeah. I had something and I lost it. I'm so sorry. Oh, now I remember what it was. One of the great things about this show is it's got a very specific feel for the place, you know, the Florida Keys and all the different economic classes there, the Rayburn family, and then all of Danny's scummy friends.
Sure.
Creating that atmosphere, how much does that affect your work?
Well, in this particular case, it was, you know, it was definitely something that I was sort of hyper aware of. The creators were hyper aware of it and wanted to feel that, you know, I wanted to create like a stickiness and a lack of comfort. You know, it's like you never get comfortable. It's the kind of place you get out of the shower and you still need 3 showers to feel safe, but you never quite get there. So we wanted to create a sort of a sense of locale and a sonic palette that was very specific to, you know, to the Keys, into Florida, into like the lighting and the sweat and the stickiness and the closeness and the shots and all of that. So to that end, we worked with a few different ideas: water, horns. There's a lot of these weird sort of horns that are not pitched quite correctly, and they do these bends throughout the, you know, in the score. And that was kind of boat horns and the idea of ships and fog and murkiness and all this stuff that's happening in their lives. That was, you know, for John specifically. For Sally, the mom, there's this bell motif that happens. It's almost like wind chimes, and that I felt was like every time you walk out of the Rayburn's house onto the porch, there's some sort of like sonic element, whether it's the wind blowing the trees or there are wind, you know, some like one of those, you know, wooden, you know, wind chime things happening. I wanted to relate to that, as well as the idea of water. So I sampled a lot of lapping, you know, ocean water and built that into tones and pads and textures that sort of creep in and out and underneath things and create this atmosphere and this mood that's sort of true to the geography and sort of the place.
Mm-hmm. No,
Also, like for Kevin, you know, for Kevin, who works on a boatyard, we went to the marina and sampled a lot of different sounds that you might hear at the marina, clanging and more industrial elements, because of, you know, he's like tripping and, you know, his cocaine crap is going on. So it's like this sort of like, you know, banging on your head sort of like thing where it's like you're never safe from it. So that was that's something we absolutely were very aware of, and I tried to find interesting and you know, upsetting ways to do it.
Mm-hmm. It definitely comes across that way.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm glad you noticed. I feel like people are keying into that a bit, like the idea that, oh, it's just so like, it feels uncomfortable. It feels sticky. It feels like not safe. Like I can't quite, you know, find my place in it. And that's exactly what I was hoping to do with those textures. And they are beautiful on the one hand, but I didn't want them to be, you know what I mean? Like they're like bucolic in a way, you know, ocean and water and boat sounds can be so, you know, nostalgically like comforting, but not here, you know, didn't want to do that.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it definitely like in those moments, you know, the Rayburn Hotel is this beautiful, idyllic place, but with all these buried secrets underneath, you know, all this ugliness.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Working with this team that you had worked with on Damages and you're working with now on Bloodline, what is that collaboration like?
Oh, it's great. As I mentioned, we kind of have a shorthand from being together for a long time. So it was nice to get back with those guys, and they're just so committed to their story and their characters and honesty and truth in the storytelling, not pushing you to feel one way or another and leaving a lot of open space. So it was really great. Just like we had done with Damages, I worked on a number of sort of thematic ideas based on conversations and scripts and discussions, and sort of front loaded with those. And from those initial ideas, I get feedback, and then we go back and forth. And then from that, it's like, oh, I like this thing that's happening here. And then I focus in on that and try to create, try to sort of pick apart little elements from maybe some more general broad strokes that I take and use those to help create a score that feels, unique and, built from something that we've all sort of shared and gone through. And then hopefully, in this case, they often used a lot of those initial ideas in the early cuts just to help give a feel. And then from there, we had sort of something to work off of. And then I collaborated really closely this season with Todd Kessler. And he and I worked together for a number of weeks late last year, honing in on certain elements like the John horn and the boatyard sounds, and then the Sally stuff. And we found thematic ideas that then we were able to really use to help locate, story points for you and for editorial and for people watching it.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've usually got like several shows going on at once. Looking at your credits, Rizzoli and Isles, Last Ship, Major Crimes.
Yeah.
You worked on Glee, American Horror Story, The Closer, Nip Tuck. Where do you find the time to sleep, I guess is what
I don't know. That's a tough. Sleep is it's not something I cherish as much as some other people. I need to sleep more getting older, but I don't know. It's inspiring to work on various different kinds of shows, and they all exercise a different part of my brain. So it's kind of nice. It's kind of fun to go and work on something like The Last Ship and then come back to Bloodline or another show, because, I feel like one set of challenges informs another set of challenges. So I feel really, it's just more experience and more, more of a perspective, more of a point of view, and more sort of gives you more courage to try other stuff, to go outside the box a bit.
Mm-hmm. And you received an Emmy nomination for your work on the third season of American Horror Story.
Mm-hmm.
What did that recognition mean for you?
Oh, I think it was really nice to be, it just felt great, you're to be recognized by, my peer group of composers was really meaningful. It's funny, it can be a very isolating kind of job because you work by yourself and you don't necessarily have, you're not getting daily minute to minute feedback. A lot of it is, you got to trust your instincts and trust yourself. So I constantly try to challenge myself to be better, to grow as a composer, as an artist, and to challenge myself to be a better collaborator with the people that are creating the shows. So it felt like a real, recognition that maybe I've done a few things okay. Yeah. It was cool.
Yeah.
And it kind of made me be like, well, I feel like I worked this hard on other shows, so I feel like, why did it take so long? But, that's a whole nother thing. That has nothing, that's not important.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm like, I thought the first season of Nip Tuck was really good, and Glee, and, but hey, it's all good. It's, I'll take the recognition for sure.
Well, thank you so much, and congratulations on your work. It's a pleasure talking to you.
You too. If you need anything else, feel free to hit me up. Let me know.
Oh, sure thing. Thank you very much.
All right.
Have a great day.
Okay, bye.